Hi, I'm Barb Nangle. I'm the founder of Higher Power Coaching and Consulting. I want to welcome you to my podcast, Fragmented to Whole: Life Lessons from 12-Step Recovery. On this podcast, I share my experience, strength, and hope from recovery. I don't support or endorse any particular 12-step recovery fellowship, and I don't claim to speak for any of them either. My hope is that you will find my words helpful in some way, whether you're in recovery or not. This is episode 78, New Possibilities. My experience of recovery is that it's all about new possibilities, new ways of thinking. One of my friends from recovery says all the time, this is not a program of learning, it's a program of unlearning. I've come to realize that this is true. Let's take the example of the really common slogan in recovery, one day at a time. It gives us new possibilities. It gives us a new perspective. The idea is that if you break a big problem down into small parts, like living your life one day at a time, you tackle your sobriety one day at a time. It doesn't mean you don't plan anything. Of course you do. You go grocery shopping so that you have food in your house. This is a new perspective for many of us in recovery. When we come in and we think about, oh my God, I have to be sober or abstinent or clean for the rest of my life, it can be really daunting. And instead, if we think about it only one day at a time, it becomes much easier to hold that possibility in your head, this new way of thinking. And the way of thinking is that problems of all kinds can be tackled little bits at a time. One of the benefits of reaching out to other people in recovery, which is one of my most important tools of recovery, is that I get new perspectives on my problems. For example, one of my issues, which I think is true of many people in recovery, is that I tend to have black and white thinking, or what some people call all or nothing thinking. Even though I've come a really long way in that regard, I still need to be reminded regularly, hey, you know there's other options, right? That prompting from other people to remember that there are other options gives me a new perspective, which helps me to see that there are new possibilities. If I'm thinking in a really rigid way and I get a new perspective from somebody else, that opens up a whole range of possibilities. The way I think of it is this: if I learned there's this one other perspective on the situation, that means there's probably millions of other perspectives on the situations. Since there are about 8 billion people, maybe there's even 8 billion perspectives on any one thing. So when I seek out new possibilities, new ways of thinking, even if I just get one new perspective, it opens my mind to the idea that I could be wrong. For example, when I decide that when somebody does something, it means a certain thing, I realize I could be wrong about what that means when I get a new perspective. For example, before recovery, let's say that my partner would do something and I would decide it meant he doesn't love me or he doesn't want to be with me anymore. The behavior could have meant any number of things, but because I had such rigid thinking and I was so self-centered, I acted as if the person didn't love me, as if they didn't want to be with me, as if that my interpretation was the truth, which could very well have made them not want to be with me because I was probably being kind of a dick. Because A, I was a very rigid thinker, and B, in this particular kind of situation, I was acting in a way that was either defensive or maybe clinging and trying to get them to love me. The process of recovery is a continuing process of coming to see new possibilities. So let me make this concrete. If you had told me 5 years ago that I would be in a deeply loving, intimate, romantic relationship with somebody that I have a ridiculous amount of fun with, who respects me profoundly and I respect profoundly, who is also my best friend, I wouldn't have believed you. because I just didn't have any experience with that. In regard to the best friend part of that, I've known a number of women who have said, my husband is my best friend. And I didn't think they were lying, but I didn't believe them because I was like, how the fuck can that be possible? I can say now with 100% certainty that my sweetheart is my best friend. I feel more close to him than I feel to anybody else. This is a completely new possibility for me that opened up because of recovery. It happened because I got all kinds of new ideas about myself and new possibilities for me. In fact, this past week was my 2-year anniversary with him. If you follow me on Instagram at Higher Power Coaching, you will have seen my post about that. And by the way, I also published an article on medium.com this week in celebration of our anniversary. It's about intimacy, and it's called Why Intimate Relationships Have Eluded You and How to Get Them. You can check it out on medium.com, or right now I happen to have a link to that article in my Instagram bio. Anyway, moving on, I'll share another example of how a new possibility opened up for me. I was in a situation where I was feeling jealous. Now, this was a very foreign feeling to me. I have not had a history of jealousy. And it was because I made a certain situation mean a specific thing in my mind. When I talked to my sponsor about it, she said, well, maybe it doesn't mean that, maybe it means this. And I was like, bam, game changer. I can't believe I never thought of it like that. Now, it didn't matter to me whether my sponsor's suggestion was, quote, the truth. What mattered was that it was a different idea than the idea I had, which opened me up to the possibility that I could be wrong and that there could be so many other possible ways of interpreting the situation. It took all of my jealousy and all those shitty thoughts away. So I encourage you to get a new perspective on whatever difficulty you're dealing with. That could be that you get the new perspective from talking to other people. It could be from journaling. There's so many different places. I remember reading a book 30 years ago, and it was called A Whack on the Side of the Head. And that book was about getting new perspectives, new ways of coming at your problems. The one suggestion they had that sticks out in my head from the book is to think of your situation like it's a baseball game, and then ask yourself, what baseball metaphors could you apply to this situation? And I remember thinking, this is brilliant. So perhaps it's that I get 3 strikes, not just 1, or I'm allowed 2 fouls to count as strikes, but my remaining fouls don't count against me. Or there's a method to the batting lineup that I hadn't thought about. Or it's time for a new inning. Or there are only 7 innings unless there's a tie. Whatever it is. If you purposefully look for new perspectives on your situations, especially your problems, you're going to come up with all kinds of new possibilities and not feel pigeonholed into your life the way you probably did before recovery. But if you don't even try to look for new possibilities, they won't even occur to you. I guess what I'm trying to say here is that it's our thinking that keeps us stuck in old possibilities. And that's why my friend says this isn't a program of learning, it's a program of unlearning. So go out there and seek new perspectives on your situations to open yourself up to new possibilities. Now, if you like what you've heard here, there are a couple of other episodes of my podcast you might find helpful. One is number 18, One Day at a Time, and the other is number 59, which is Making Things Mean Things That They Don't. May you get a new perspective and find new possibilities. Talk to you next week. That's it for today. Please share this episode with anyone who might find it helpful. If you like what you've heard here, you might be interested in private coaching with me. If that sounds like you, then head on over to barbchat.net, where you can get on my calendar for a free 20-minute consultation to help you make lasting changes in your life, like I've made deep, lasting changes in my life. My ideal client is someone who is ripe for change, but I'll coach anyone who wants to be happy, joyous, and free. So if that's you, then go to barbchat.net and get on my calendar. I'd love to chat with you. Please like and subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast outlet. This helps other people find me. Thanks for listening.